Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. The morning air in Genoa City carried an uneasy silence, the kind that always seemed to arrive just before a storm. Inside the Newman ranch, Nikki Newman sat alone in the living room, her fingers wrapped tightly around a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. She hadn't slept much the night before. Too many questions had been swirling through her mind, and every single one of them seemed to lead back to the same person. Victor Newman. For days, Jack Abbott had been missing. No calls, no messages, no explanation. And while most people in town were still speculating, Nikki had begun to notice something others hadn't. Victor wasn't worried. That alone was enough to raise alarms. Nikki leaned back slowly, replaying every conversation she'd had with her husband since Jack disappeared. At first, Victor had acted concerned, even sympathetic. But the more she thought about it, the more something felt off. Victor had known too much. He knew where Jack had last been seen. He knew details that hadn't been made public. And most of all, he seemed far too calm, too controlled. Nikki's eyes narrowed as the pieces began to fall into place like a puzzle she hadn't realized she'd been solving. Victor, she whispered to herself. The front door opened and Victor stepped inside, removing his coat as if nothing in the world was wrong. "Good morning, Nikki," he said smoothly. Nikki didn't answer. Victor noticed immediately. His instincts were sharp, they had to be after decades of running empires and outmaneuvering enemies. He studied her face carefully. "You look troubled." Nikki set the coffee cup down slowly. "I've been thinking," she said. Victor gave a small, knowing smile that can be dangerous. But Nikki didn't smile back. "Jack Abbott disappeared," she said bluntly, "and somehow you seem to know exactly what's going on." Victor's expression barely changed, but Nikki caught the flicker in his eyes. "Now, Nikki, people disappear all the time." Don't." Her voice cut through the room like glass. Victor fell silent. Nikki stood, her heart pounding as the realization finally solidified into certainty. "You did something," she said quietly. Victor's gaze hardened. "I'm protecting this family." "That's not an answer. It's the only one that matters." Nikki's breath caught. "Victor, tell me you didn't have anything to do with Jack disappearing." Victor said nothing. And that silence told her everything. Nikki stepped back as if the truth had physically struck her. "Oh my God, you did." Victor finally spoke. "Jack Abbott has been a threat to this family for decades. He crossed a line." "Oh, you kidnapped him." Victor's voice dropped. "I handled a problem." Nikki stared at him in disbelief. "Oh, you kidnapped him." "Lower your voice." "Are you insane?" Nikki exploded. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Victor remained cold and controlled. "I know exactly what I've done." Nikki shook her head, horrified. "This is going to destroy everything." Victor stepped closer. "It's already handled." "No, Victor," Nikki said, her voice trembling. "It's just beginning." Across town, things were equally explosive at the Abbott house. Diane Jenkins was packing furiously across the living room while Phyllis Summers sat on the couch with a look that could only be described as smug amusement. Kyle Abbott stood between them, clearly regretting every life choice that had led to this moment. "Tell me again," Diane snapped, "why you're here." Phyllis crossed her legs casually. "A concern." Diane laughed bitterly. "A concern for Jack." "Well, maybe not Jack specifically." Kyle rubbed his temples. "Can we not do this right now?" But Diane was already on edge, and Phyllis knew exactly how to push every single button. "Look," Phyllis said, "Jack's missing. I thought maybe someone here would want help finding him." Diane stopped packing. "You help." Phyllis shrugged. "I have skills." Diane's voice rose. "The only thing you have is a long history of ruining this family." Phyllis leaned forward. "That's funny coming from the woman who faked her own deaths." Kyle sighed loudly. "Please stop." But it was far too late. Diane stepped closer, her patience officially gone. "You have no right to be here." Phyllis smirked. "And yet here I am." "You think this is funny." "I think," Phyllis replied calmly, "that you're terrified." Diane's eyes flashed. Of you. And no, of the truth. The tension in the room snapped like a rubber band stretched too far. Diane finally exploded. You know what, Phyllis, I am done with your games. Phyllis stood slowly. Good, because I'm just getting started. Kyle stepped forward quickly. Enough, both of you. But Diane's anger had been building for months, maybe years. You have spent your entire life trying to destroy everything I care about. Phyllis shot back instantly. Oh, please, you destroyed your own life long before I showed up. Diane lost it. You manipulative toxic. Careful, Phyllis warned. But Diane wasn't stopping. You're nothing but chaos wrapped in red hair. Phyllis laughed. And you're nothing but a desperate woman pretending to be respectable. Kyle raised his voice again. Stop. But neither woman even heard him. Because at that moment, Diane's last nerve had officially been hit. And the fight between two of Genoa City's most dangerous rivals had just begun. Meanwhile, across town at Crimson Lights, Sharon Newman sat quietly at a table with Nick Newman, both of them looking worried. This isn't good, Sharon said softly. Nick nodded. Jack disappearing, Victor acting strange, something happening. Sharon hesitated. There's one person who might know. Nick looked up. You're thinking the same thing I am. Adam. Nick sighed. Adam Newman had been keeping a low profile lately, something that almost never happened. But if anyone could uncover the truth behind Victor's latest moves, it was him. Nick stood. Let's go. Sharon nodded. Let's hope he's ready to help. Because if Adam Newman was about to step back into the game, Genoa City was about to get a lot more dangerous. The tension in Genoa City had reached a breaking point. Inside Adam Newman's penthouse, the curtains were half drawn, leaving the room dim despite the bright afternoon sun outside. Adam sat at his desk staring at an untouched glass of whiskey, lost in thought. For weeks he had been keeping his distance from the chaos of the family empire. No schemes, no power plays, no battles with Victor. Just silence. But silence never lasted long in the Newman family. A knock came at the door. Adam didn't move at first. Then the knock came again. Adam, Nick's voice called from outside, we know you're in there. Adam sighed, stood slowly, and walked to the door. When he opened it, Nick and Sharon stood there, both looking serious. Well, Adam said dryly, this looks like an intervention. Nick stepped inside. Something going on. Adam closed the door behind them. There's always something going on. Sharon spoke gently, Jack Abbott is missing. Adam's eyebrows lifted slightly. Missing. Nick nodded. And we think Victor is involved. That got Adam's attention. He leaned against the desk. You think Victor is involved? Sharon exchanged a look with Nick. Nikki, starting to figure it out, Sharon said. She confronted him. Adam let out a quiet chuckle. Well, that must have been pleasant. Nick crossed his arms. This isn't a joke. Adam's expression turned serious again. Why come to me? Nick didn't hesitate. Because when Dad does something like this, you're the only one who can figure out what he's planning. Adam studied his brother for a moment. You mean the only one who thinks like him? Nick didn't argue. Sharon stepped closer. Adams, we need your help. Adam walked toward the window and looked out over Genoa City. The skyline looked calm, peaceful even. But he knew better than anyone that beneath that calm surface, the city was always on the edge of chaos. Especially when Victor Newman was involved. If Victor took Jack, Adam said slowly, he wouldn't do it without a reason. Nick frowned. Kidnapping someone isn't a strategy. For Victor it is, Adam replied. Sharon spoke carefully. Do you think Jack's in danger? Adam thought about it. No, he said finally, not yet. Nick's frustration grew. Then where is he? Adam turned back to them. That's what we're going to find out. Nick blinked. Oh wait. Adam gave a faint smile. You came here for help, congratulations, you got it. Nick looked surprised. You're actually going to help. Adam shrugged. Let's just say I'm feeling nostalgic. Meanwhile, across town, the confrontation between Diane and Phyllis had reached nuclear levels. Kyle stood helplessly between them as the two women faced off like longtime enemies ready for battle. You've spent years manipulating everyone around you, Diane shouted. Phyllis rolled her eyes. Oh, please, if manipulation were illegal, you'd be serving a life sentence. Diane stepped forward. You don't care about Jack. And you do, Phyllis fired back. You're only worried about protecting your perfect little image. My image, Diane laughed bitterly. You're the last person who should talk about reputation. Kyle raised both hands. Enough, this is about Dad. But the argument had become too personal. Phyllis leaned closer to Diane. You know what your real problem is. Diane's eyes narrowed. Oh, what? You're terrified that Jack chose me once, and deep down you know he still could. The room went silent. Diane's face turned red with rage. Are you delusional? Before she could finish, Kyle stepped between them. Stop. Both women froze. Kyle looked exhausted. My father is missing, no one knows where he is, and instead of helping find him, you two are fighting about ancient history. Phyllis folded her arms. Well, maybe if someone here stopped pretending they were perfect. Diane cut her off. You need to leave. Phyllis tilted her head. Make me. Kyle pointed toward the door. Please just go. For a moment, Phyllis looked like she might continue the fight. Then she sighed dramatically. Oh, fine. She grabbed her purse and walked toward the door. But before leaving, she turned back to Diane with a small, dangerous smile. Just remember something, Phyllis said quietly. If Jack doesn't come back, none of this will matter. Then she walked out. Diane stood frozen, breathing heavily. Kyle looked at her carefully. Mom. But Diane didn't respond. Because deep down, the same terrifying thought had just crossed her mind. What if Jack never came back? Back at the Newman ranch, the tension between Nikki and Victor had only grown colder. Victor sat behind his desk while Nikki stood across from him, her eyes filled with disappointment. I can't believe you, she said quietly. Victor remained calm. I told you, Nikki, Jack crossed a line. So your solution was to make him disappear. I'm protecting our family. You keep saying that, Nikki replied, but it sounds more like revenge. Victor didn't deny it. Jack Abbott has tried to destroy me for years. And now you've become exactly what he's always accused you of being. Victor's jaw tightened. Careful. No, Nikki said firmly. You be careful, because if Jack isn't found soon, people will start asking questions. Victor stood slowly. Let them. Nikki stared at him. You think you can control everything. Victor looked directly into her eyes. I usually can. But Nikki shook her head. This time, I think you've gone too far. Elsewhere in Genoa City, Adam, Nick, and Sharon sat together studying a list of properties connected to Victor Newman. Adam tapped the paper. Victor wouldn't keep Jack somewhere obvious. Nick leaned forward. So where? Adam circled a location on the map. Oh, there. Sharon frowned. The harbor warehouse. Adam nodded. It's quiet, private, and Victor owns it through 3 different shell companies. Nick's eyes widened. You think Jack's there? Adam shrugged. If Victor took him, that's where I'd hide him. Nick stood immediately. Then let's go. Adam grabbed his coat. Careful, Nick. Why? Adam smirked slightly. Because if we're right, we're about to walk straight into one of Victor Newman's traps. Sharon looked worried. And if we're wrong? Adam opened the door. Then we're about to start a war. And in Genoa City. War was coming.